Sarah Mitchell knew she was dying. The diagnosis had arrived with the cold precision of medical terminology. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, metastasized to the liver, inoperable, 6 months at best. The oncologist's words had echoed in the sterile examination room, bouncing off the mint-green walls while Sarah sat perfectly still, her mind racing to a single thought: Emma. Her 7-year-old daughter with chestnut hair and curious eyes too wise for her age. Emma, who had already lost her father to a sudden heart attack 2 years ago. Emma, who now faced losing her mother too. If you believe in the power of community and the strength of unexpected heroes, subscribe to our channel now and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring more stories of extraordinary compassion to light. The drive home from the hospital had been surreal. April sunshine filtered through the windshield, warming Sarah's hands on the steering wheel, as if the world hadn't just shattered. People walked dogs, jogged, checked their mailboxes, normal Tuesday activities that suddenly seemed like artifacts from another life, one Sarah would soon leave behind. She had pulled into her driveway, turned off the engine and sat there for 20 minutes, rehearsing how to tell her mother-in-law Barbara, who was watching Emma, until Sarah returned from her routine checkup. Sarah glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror, noting how ordinary she looked. The same shoulder-length brown hair, the same hazel eyes that Emma had inherited, the same small scar above her eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. How strange that death could be growing inside her, while she appeared so normal on the outside. Not for long, though. Soon the disease and treatments would begin their visible ravages. She thought of Michael, her husband, gone 2 years now. He had dropped to the floor in their kitchen on a Sunday morning, his coffee mug shattering against the tile, while Emma watched from her booster seat at the table. The doctors called it an undiagnosed congenital heart defect, a ticking time bomb in his chest that could have gone off at any moment. Sarah had barely kept her head above water in the aftermath, learning to navigate single parenthood while processing her own grief and helping Emma through hers. Not fair, she whispered to the empty car. It's not fair to her. But life, as Sarah had learned, rarely distributed its burdens fairly. Finally, she gathered the strength to enter the house. Barbara was in the kitchen preparing a snack for Emma, who was coloring at the table. The older woman looked up with a smile that quickly faded when she saw Sarah's expression. "Emma, sweetie," Barbara said, her voice impressively steady, "would you go check if Mr. Whiskers is in your room? I haven't seen him all afternoon." Emma, engrossed in her coloring, nodded absently and slipped from her chair. Mr. Whiskers, their elderly tabby cat, was almost certainly napping in his favorite sunny spot in the living room, but Emma dutifully went to search for him. As soon as she was out of earshot, Barbara turned to Sarah. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Sarah sank into a kitchen chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. "It's cancer," she said, the words foreign and harsh on her tongue. "Stage 4 pancreatic. It's already spread to my liver." Barbara's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a cry. At 72, she had buried her husband and her son, and now faced losing her daughter-in-law. "Treatment?" she managed to ask. Sarah shook her head. "Palliative only. They're talking about quality of life, not quantity. 6 months if I'm lucky." Barbara crossed the kitchen in 3 quick steps and wrapped Sarah in a fierce embrace. Sarah allowed herself a moment of weakness, burying her face in the older woman's shoulder, inhaling the familiar scent of lavender soap and home. "What can I do?" Barbara asked when they finally separated, tears tracking down her lined face. Sarah took a deep, shuddering breath. "Help me figure out how to tell Emma. Help me make arrangements and—" she hesitated. "Help me find someone who can take care of her after I'm gone." Barbara's eyes widened. "Sarah, you know I would take her in a heartbeat." "I know," Sarah interrupted gently, "and I love you for it. But be realistic, Barbara. You're 72 with arthritis and a heart condition. Emma is 7, active, energetic, with her whole life ahead of her. She needs someone younger, someone who can be there for her through high school, college, beyond." Barbara closed her eyes, acknowledging the painful truth of Sarah's words. After a moment, she nodded. "We'll figure it out together. Whatever Emma needs." The treatments had been brutal. 3 rounds of aggressive chemotherapy that left her violently ill, unable to care for Emma for days at a stretch. Barbara had moved in temporarily, running the household, while Sarah spent endless hours curled around toilet bowls and basin buckets. The medical bills mounted with terrifying speed. Insurance covered some, but the deductibles, co-pays and experimental treatments deemed not medically necessary by faceless insurance adjusters threatened to deplete the modest life insurance policy Michael had left behind. The money Sarah had carefully set aside for Emma's future was disappearing into a medical system that offered little hope. During one particularly bad night, as Sarah lay trembling with exhaustion after hours of vomiting, a memory surfaced of Michael sitting at this same bathroom floor beside her during her pregnancy with Emma. She had suffered from hyperemesis gravidarum, severe morning sickness. Throughout the pregnancy, Michael had been her rock, holding back her hair, wiping her face with cool cloths, whispering encouragement even at 3 a.m. "Worth it," he had said when she tearfully wondered if she could endure 7 more months. "Every second of this is worth it for our baby." And it had been. Emma had arrived perfect and healthy after a mercifully quick labor. Sarah remembered the look on Michael's face when he first held his daughter, pure awe, love in its most distilled form. Now, as Sarah fought through another wave of nausea, she whispered to the empty bathroom, "Still worth it." Every second with her was worth it. Then came the impossible choice. Dr. Sharma, her oncologist, a woman with kind eyes and brutal honesty, had laid out the options. "The chemotherapy isn't working as we'd hoped," she had explained. "We can try a new protocol, more aggressive, more frequent treatments. It might buy you a few more months, but the side effects will be significant. You'll need full-time care. Or," she had paused, choosing her words carefully, "we can focus on palliative care, managing symptoms, keeping you comfortable, giving you quality time rather than quantity." Sarah had appreciated the doctor's directness. Too many medical professionals had couched her prognosis in euphemisms and vague probabilities. Dr. Sharma's clarity, though painful, was a gift. It allowed Sarah to make decisions with full awareness of what she was facing. "If I choose the more aggressive treatment," Sarah had asked, "realistically, how much more time might I gain? And what would the quality of that time be like?" Dr. Sharma had met her gaze steadily. "Perhaps an additional 2 to 3 months beyond our current estimate, but you would likely spend much of that time in the hospital or severely debilitated at home. The side effects are considerable." Sarah had nodded, already knowing her answer. "And the cost?" "My insurance." "The new protocol is classified as experimental. Your insurance is unlikely to cover more than a fraction of it." The decision had formed in Sarah's mind with startling clarity. More chemo meant more money spent, more time incapacitated, more of Emma's college fund drained away for what? A few more agonizing months where she'd be too sick to be a mother? No, her remaining time would be spent with Emma, truly with her, not as a hollow shell ravaged by chemicals. She would ensure that what little money remained would be secured for her daughter's future. But that meant making the most wrenching decision of all, finding someone to raise Emma after she was gone. Barbara was the obvious choice, but at 72 with arthritis that worsened each year, could she really raise an active young girl? Sarah's own parents had died years ago, and her only sister lived in Australia with 4 children of her own. There was no perfect solution, but Sarah needed to find the best one possible, someone who would love Emma, guide her, and preserve the memories of her parents. She'd been sitting in the sunroom, watching Emma play in the backyard, when the motorcycle had rumbled past their house. The distinctive sound had drawn Emma's attention, her small face lighting up as she ran to the fence for a better look. "Mom, did you see? It's just like Daddy's bike, the one in the pictures." Indeed it was, a vintage Indian Chief, the same model Michael had lovingly restored before selling it when Emma was born. "Too dangerous for a family man," he'd said, though Sarah had caught the wistfulness in his eyes whenever a motorcycle passed by. The coincidence felt like more than chance. It felt like a sign. Sarah remembered the day Michael had reluctantly sold his prized motorcycle. She had found him in the garage, running his hand over the gleaming fuel tank one last time. "You don't have to do this," she had told him, her 8-month pregnant belly making it difficult to stand close to him. "We can make the finances work another way." Michael had smiled, that crooked smile that still made her heart skip even after years of marriage. "I want to," he'd said. "This bike was perfect for the man I was, but it's not right for the father I'm going to be." He'd placed a hand on her rounded stomach, feeling their daughter kick. "Besides, there will be other bikes someday when she's older. Maybe we'll ride together, the 3 of us." That someday would never come now, but the memory of Michael's love for that motorcycle, and his greater love for their unborn child remained vivid. The motorcycle had slowed, then stopped at the neighbor's house 3 doors down. Sarah watched as the rider dismounted, a tall man with broad shoulders, his silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. He removed his helmet, revealing a weathered face with laugh lines around the eyes. Mr. Callahan, the new neighbor who had moved in 2 months ago. Sarah had exchanged pleasantries with him at the mailbox once or twice, but knew little about him beyond neighborhood rumors. Retired military, kept to himself, spent hours working on his motorcycle in the driveway. "Can I go look at the bike, Mom? Please?" Emma had begged, already halfway to the gate. Sarah should have said no, should have called Emma back. Instead, she had found herself walking alongside her daughter down the sidewalk, drawn by the strange conviction that had settled in her chest. As they approached, Mr. Callahan looked up from where he was adjusting something on the motorcycle's chrome handlebars. "Sorry to intrude," Sarah had begun. "My daughter was admiring your bike. It's the same model my late husband used to have." Mr. Callahan's expression had softened at the mention of Emma's father. "No intrusion at all, ma'am. Name's Deacon Callahan." He had crouched down to Emma's level. "You like motorcycles, little lady?" "My daddy had one just like this," Emma had informed him solemnly. "But he's in heaven now. He had a bad heart." "I'm sorry to hear that," Deacon had replied, his voice gentle. "Your daddy had good taste in bikes. This here's a 1948 Indian chief. Been restoring her for almost 2 years." Emma had circled the motorcycle, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's so shiny. Daddy's was red, though. Is that the carburetor?" she asked, pointing. Deacon's eyebrows had risen in surprise. "That's right. You know about motorcycle parts?" Emma had nodded proudly. "Daddy showed me in his pictures. He said maybe I could have a bike someday when I'm big." "Smart man, your daddy," Deacon had said, glancing up at Sarah with a look of genuine respect. "It's good to understand how things work." The conversation had flowed easily after that, Deacon showing Emma the different parts of the motorcycle, explaining how the engine worked in terms a 7-year-old could understand. Sarah had watched, something loosening in her chest at Emma's animated responses, the first real excitement she'd seen in her daughter in weeks. When Deacon had mentioned being a retired Marine Corps sergeant, who now worked as a custom motorcycle restorer with a shop in town, Sarah had found herself asking more questions, drawing out his story. Widowed, no children of his own, a career military man who had served for 25 years before retiring, no family in the area, but a network of fellow veterans and motorcycle enthusiasts he called brothers. A quiet life, structured and disciplined. The more he spoke, the stronger Sarah's intuition grew. As they walked back home, Emma chattering excitedly about engines and chrome, Sarah realized she had learned more about Deacon Callahan in 20 minutes than she had about any of their other neighbors in years. There was something straightforward about him, a lack of pretense that she found refreshing, but more importantly, she had seen how he spoke to Emma, with respect, not condescension. He had engaged with her daughter as a person, not just a cute child to be humored. Sarah had made up her mind. It was crazy, impossible even. What kind of mother would consider entrusting her child to a man she barely knew? And yet, something about Deacon Callahan's steady gaze, the respectful way he'd spoken to Emma, the quiet dignity in his bearing, it resonated with Sarah in a way she couldn't explain. That had been 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of careful observation, discreet inquiries around the neighborhood, and finally a deliberate campaign to create chance encounters, bringing over home-baked cookies to welcome him properly to the neighborhood, asking for help when her lawnmower wouldn't start, inviting him to join them for a casual barbecue along with Barbara and a few neighbors. Each interaction had confirmed Sarah's initial impression. Deacon Callahan was a good man, honorable, kind beneath his reserved exterior, and possessed of a moral code as straight as his military posture. On one occasion, Sarah had arrived home from a doctor's appointment to find Deacon fixing Emma's bicycle in their driveway. The chain had come off, and Emma had apparently asked for his help while playing outside under Barbara's supervision. "Hope you don't mind," he'd said when Sarah approached. She said it was okay to help. "Of course," Sarah had assured him. "Thank you for taking the time." He'd shrugged, his hands competently working to reattach the chain. "No trouble. My dad taught me to never pass by someone who needs help you're able to give. Seems like a simple enough rule to live by." That statement, delivered without any attempt at self-aggrandizement, had cemented Sarah's growing conviction. Here was a man guided by straightforward principles, who did what he thought was right, without needing acknowledgement or praise, the kind of man she wanted influencing her daughter's development. Another day, she'd observed him from her kitchen window as he patiently helped Mrs. Abernathy, their elderly neighbor across the street, carry groceries into her house, not just to the door, but all the way inside, taking the time to make sure everything was properly put away before leaving. No one had asked him to do it. He had simply seen a need and filled it. Today would be the day. Sarah had asked Barbara to take Emma shopping for new school shoes, ensuring she would have several hours alone. She had rehearsed her speech dozens of times, trying to find words that wouldn't sound completely insane. How do you ask a virtual stranger to raise your child after you die? She looked around the living room, making sure everything was in order. Fresh flowers on the coffee table, Emma's toys neatly stowed in their baskets, a plate of cookies and a pitcher of iced tea prepared, as if the normality of these domestic touches could somehow make her outlandish request more acceptable. Sarah smoothed her sundress, one that disguised how much weight the cancer had already stolen from her frame, and fought back a wave of dizziness. The pain medications made her lightheaded sometimes, but she needed to be clear-headed for this conversation. The doorbell rang precisely at 2 o'clock. Deacon was punctual, another trait Sarah had noticed and appreciated. She steadied herself against the wall for a moment, then walked carefully to the door. "Ms. Mitchell." Deacon nodded politely, removing his baseball cap. He wore jeans and a plain blue button-down shirt, his silver-streaked hair neatly combed. "You said you needed to discuss something important." Sarah studied him briefly, the straight posture, the direct gaze, hands that were calloused from physical work but impeccably clean. Everything about him spoke of discipline and care. "Please, call me Sarah," she said, stepping back to let him in. "And thank you for coming. Can I offer you some iced tea?" "That would be fine, ma'am. Thank you." She led him to the kitchen, the heart of the home with its yellow walls and children's artwork magnetized to the refrigerator. The normalcy of the setting felt important somehow, a reminder that this was about creating a normal life for Emma after Sarah was gone. "Sugar?" she asked, pouring tea into 2 glasses. "No, thank you. Black is fine." Sarah handed him the glass, then sat across from him at the kitchen table. Now that the moment had arrived, all her carefully prepared words evaporated. How to begin? How to explain the inexplicable certainty that had brought her to this point? Deacon saved her the trouble. "If you don't mind my saying, Ms. Mitchell, Sarah, you didn't invite me over to discuss lawn care or neighborhood watch. Something's troubling you." His eyes, a deep gray like storm clouds, were direct but kind. "Is there something I can help with?" His directness was reassuring. No small talk, no dancing around the issue. Sarah took a deep breath. "Mr. Callahan, Deacon, please." "Deacon, what I'm about to say will sound crazy, inappropriate even, but I'm asking you to hear me out completely before you respond." He nodded once, setting down his glass. "I'm listening." "I'm dying," Sarah said, the words falling into the space between them like stones. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors have given me 6 months, but I think it will be less. The treatments aren't working, and I've decided to stop them to focus on spending what time I have left with my daughter." Deacon's expression remained steady, though his eyes registered the gravity of her words. "I'm very sorry to hear that," he said quietly. Sarah nodded, then continued. "Emma has already lost her father. Now she's going to lose me too. My mother-in-law Barbara loves Emma dearly, but she's 72 with health problems of her own. She can't raise an active 7-year-old. I have no other family who can take her." She met Deacon's gaze directly. "I've spent the last 3 weeks getting to know you, watching how you interact with Emma. You're a good man, honorable, steady, the kind of person who keeps his word." Understanding dawned in Deacon's eyes, but he remained silent, letting her continue. "I'm asking you to become Emma's guardian after I'm gone." The words hung in the air between them, impossible yet spoken. "I know how this sounds. I know we barely know each other, but I've learned to trust my instincts, and something tells me you're the right person. You have the character, the stability Emma needs. And," she hesitated, then pressed on, "you remind me of Michael in some ways. The same quiet strength, the same fundamental decency." Deacon's face registered shock despite his self-control. "Ms. Mitchell, Sarah, I don't know what to say. I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. I've never raised a child. I live alone. My life isn't set up for—" "I know," Sarah interrupted gently. "I know what I'm asking is enormous. Life-changing for you. But please, before you decide, let me tell you what I've arranged. She reached for a folder on the counter and placed it between them. This house is paid for. I'm leaving it to Emma with provisions that you would live here as her guardian. There's a life insurance policy that will cover expenses until she's 18. I've set up a separate account for her college. Everything is legally arranged. My lawyer has drawn up all the necessary paperwork. She opened the folder, showing him the documents. All that's missing is a guardian I can trust. Deacon stared at the papers, then back at Sarah, his expression troubled. Why me? There must be friends, colleagues, people you've known for years who would be better suited. Sarah smiled sadly. I've thought about this constantly since my diagnosis. The truth is, most of my close friends are couples with children of their own. Adding Emma would strain already busy households. Others are single women with demanding careers who couldn't suddenly become full-time mothers. And none of them, she paused, searching for words, none of them would be able to help Emma understand loss the way I think you could. You've experienced it. You know what it's like to rebuild a life. That's what Emma will need. Deacon's eyes widened slightly at her insight. He had mentioned his wife's death only in passing during their previous conversations, but Sarah had sensed the depth of that loss in the careful way he spoke of her. May I ask about your wife? Sarah said gently. I know it's personal, but if I'm entrusting my daughter to you... Deacon nodded, his gaze dropping to his hands for a moment. Catherine, we were married 15 years. Breast cancer took her 8 years ago. We never had children, tried, but it didn't happen for us. He looked up, meeting Sarah's eyes. She was a kindergarten teacher, loved kids, would have been a wonderful mother. There was no self-pity in his tone, just a quiet acknowledgement of grief weathered and integrated into his life. It confirmed everything Sarah had intuited about him. Silence stretched between them. Deacon's gaze dropped to the documents, then moved to the refrigerator covered with Emma's drawings. Stick figures of a smiling girl, holding hands with a woman labeled Mom in a child's uneven printing. I can't give you an answer right now, he said finally. This is significant. I need time to think, to be sure I could do right by your daughter. Sarah nodded. Of course, I understand, but I don't have much time, Deacon, and Emma needs to get to know you better before... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. May I take these to review, he asked, gesturing to the documents. Please do. And Deacon, I'm not asking for an answer today, but I am asking you to spend more time with Emma while you consider. Get to know her. Let her get to know you. The most important thing to me is that wherever Emma goes after I'm gone, it's to someone she trusts, someone who will love her. Deacon stood, tucking the folder carefully under his arm. I'll think about it, Sarah, and yes, I'd be willing to spend more time with Emma while I consider. He hesitated, then added, Does she know about your condition? She knows I'm sick, that the doctors are trying to make me better. She doesn't know yet that they can't. That conversation... Sarah's voice broke slightly. That conversation is coming soon. At the door, Deacon turned back. One more question. Your mother-in-law, how does she feel about this arrangement? Barbara was the one who suggested I find someone younger, more able to raise Emma through her teenage years and beyond, Sarah answered. She'll always be Emma's grandmother, always be in her life. But she knows her limitations. As for it being you specifically, we've discussed it. She's met you at the barbecue. She trusts my judgment. Deacon nodded. I'll be in touch soon, he promised, settling his cap back on his head before walking down the path to the sidewalk. Sarah watched him go, exhaustion washing over her now that the conversation was done. She had no guarantees he would say yes, but she had done what she could, put the possibility before him, planted the seed. Now all she could do was wait and hope and pray that her intuition about Deacon Callahan was right. That night, alone in her bedroom after Emma was asleep, Sarah looked at the photographs on her nightstand. Her wedding day with Michael, Emma as a newborn, the three of them at the beach the summer before Michael died. Am I doing the right thing? She whispered to Michael's image. Is he the right choice for our daughter? No answer came, of course, but as Sarah drifted towards sleep, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had followed her instincts, the same instincts that had led her to Michael all those years ago. Whatever happened now was in Deacon's hands. The next morning, Sarah woke to find Emma standing beside her bed, already dressed in mismatched clothes of her own choosing. Can we have pancakes, Mum? She asked, with chocolate chips. Sarah smiled, pushing herself up, despite the fatigue that never seemed to leave her bones these days. Absolutely. Let's make some together. In the kitchen, Sarah measured ingredients while Emma stirred the batter with fierce concentration. These ordinary moments had become precious beyond measure, cooking together, reading bedtime stories, brushing Emma's hair each morning. Sarah tried to commit every detail to memory, hoping somehow these recollections would sustain Emma in the years to come. "Mom," Emma asked, chocolate smeared on one cheek, "is Mr. Callahan going to come over again soon? He said he might show me how to change a tire someday." Sarah's heart squeezed painfully in her chest. "Would you like that, if he came over more often?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "He's nice. Not like Mrs. Peterson's new boyfriend who talks to me like I'm a baby. Mr. Callahan explains things properly." "Then I'll make sure to invite him over again," Sarah promised, storing away this small confirmation that her intuition about Deacon and Emma had been correct. 3 days passed without word from Deacon. Sarah tried not to let disappointment cloud her remaining time with Emma. They baked cookies, worked on a puzzle together, read stories at bedtime, precious moments that Sarah committed to memory, hoping somehow these recollections would sustain Emma in the years to come. On the 4th day, the distinctive rumble of a motorcycle engine drew them both to the front window. Deacon was pulling into their driveway, a large cardboard box secured to the back of his bike. "It's Mr. Callahan," Emma exclaimed excitedly. "Can I go see the motorcycle again?" "Let's both go," Sarah suggested, her heart beating faster. What did his arrival mean? Had he made a decision? Deacon was removing his helmet when they stepped outside. "Afternoon, Miss Mitchell." "Hello, Emma," he greeted them, his expression giving nothing away. "Hi, Mr. Callahan." Emma bounced on her toes. "What's in the box?" "Well now, that's why I'm here," he said, a small smile warming his usually serious features. "I was going through some things in my garage and found my old model airplane collection. Thought you might like to build one with me, if your mom says it's okay." Emma turned to Sarah, eyes pleading. "Can I, Mom? Please?" Sarah felt a surge of hope. "Of course, sweetheart. Why don't you help Mr. Callahan bring the box inside?" Emma needed no further encouragement, carefully helping Deacon lift the large box and carry it toward the house. Sarah watched them, noting the way Deacon adjusted his stride to Emma's shorter steps, the patient way he answered her rapid-fire questions about what kind of planes were in the box and how they were built. Inside, they cleared the kitchen table, and Deacon unpacked several model kits with methodical care. "I thought we'd start with something simple," he told Emma, selecting a small biplane. "This one doesn't have too many parts, good for beginners." For the next 2 hours, Sarah observed them from the kitchen counter, where she pretended to prepare dinner. Deacon showed remarkable patience, guiding Emma's small fingers as they sorted tiny pieces, explaining each step of the process in terms she could understand. Emma, usually restless, remained focused, her tongue sticking out in concentration as she carefully applied glue where Deacon indicated. "My dad taught me to build models when I was about your age," Deacon told Emma as they worked. "Said it teaches patience and attention to detail. Good skills for life." "My daddy taught me to ride a bike," Emma offered. "He held onto the back so I wouldn't fall." Sarah's breath caught at this rare, voluntary mention of Michael. Emma usually avoided talking about her father, as if speaking of him might cause her more pain. But here she was, sharing a memory unprompted. "That's a father's job," Deacon nodded seriously. "To hold on until you're ready to ride on your own." Emma considered this, but sometimes you still fall anyway. "That's true," Deacon acknowledged. "And then you get back up, check what went wrong and try again. That's the important part, the getting back up." Sarah turned away, blinking back tears at the simple wisdom of his words. This was exactly the kind of guidance Emma would need in the years ahead. When Barbara arrived to pick Emma up for her weekly grandmother-granddaughter dinner, Deacon helped Emma carefully set aside the half-completed model. "We'll finish it next time," he promised her. "You've done excellent work today, Emma, very precise. That's important in building models." Emma beamed at the praise. "Can we do another one after this one's done?" "I think that can be arranged," Deacon replied solemnly, but with a warmth in his eyes that told Sarah everything she needed to know. After Emma left with Barbara, Deacon remained at the kitchen table. Sarah joined him, hope and anxiety warring in her chest. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Deacon began without preamble. "Talked with some people I trust. One of them is a family lawyer. He reviewed the documents you gave me." He met Sarah's gaze directly. I have conditions. Sarah nodded, afraid to speak lest she break whatever tenuous thread was forming. First, I want a transition period. Starting now, I need to get to know Emma better, and she needs to get to know me. Really know me, not just as the neighbor with the motorcycle. Yes, Sarah agreed immediately. That's what I want too. Second, your mother-in-law stays involved. Emma needs that connection to her father, to her history. Absolutely. Barbara wants that too. Third, Deacon continued, his voice softening slightly, I want you to help me understand who Emma is. Her favorite foods, her fears, what makes her laugh, the routines that make her feel secure, the stories she likes to hear. I need to know how to be what she needs. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. His conditions weren't demands, they were commitments, evidence that he was taking this responsibility with the seriousness it deserved. I can do that, she whispered. Then yes, Deacon said simply. I'll be Emma's guardian when the time comes. Relief washed over Sarah in a dizzying wave. Thank you, she managed, the words entirely inadequate for the enormity of what he was agreeing to. Deacon nodded once, acknowledging her gratitude without dismissing it. There's one more thing, he added. I have people, friends, fellow veterans, members of my motorcycle club. They're like family to me. If I'm going to raise Emma, they'll be part of her life too. Good people, but not what most would consider conventional influences for a young girl. I need to know you're comfortable with that. Sarah considered this. What kind of motorcycle club? The Iron Veterans. We're mostly former military. We do charity rides, support programs for homeless vets, that sort of thing. A hint of defensiveness crept into his tone. Not an outlaw club. No criminal activity. Just a brotherhood of people who served. Sarah nodded slowly. I trust your judgment, Deacon. If these are people you consider family, then they're people I want Emma to know. She managed a small smile. Besides, Emma's father loved motorcycles. She already has a fondness for them. It seems fitting somehow. Something in Deacon's expression eased. I'd like you to meet them, my brothers, so you can see for yourself who they are. I'd like that, Sarah agreed, though privately she wondered how much time she had left for such introductions. The pain had been intensifying, requiring stronger medication. Her energy waned more each day. As if reading her thoughts, Deacon added, Soon, this weekend, if you're feeling up to it, just a small gathering, low-key. After he left, Sarah sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the half-assembled model airplane. The impossible had happened. She had found a guardian for Emma, someone she believed would raise her daughter with the same values and care that she and Michael would have. The relief was so profound it left her lightheaded. She reached for the phone to call Barbara, but hesitated. There was one more thing she needed to do first. Pulling a notebook toward her, Sarah began to write, filling pages with everything Deacon would need to know about Emma. Her favorite foods, her bedtime routine, the names of her stuffed animals, and the stories behind each one. The way she needed her sandwiches cut into triangles, not squares, her fear of thunderstorms, how she secretly still sucked her thumb when she was very tired, but was embarrassed about it. All the intimate knowledge a mother accumulates over years of loving attention, distilled onto paper for the man who would take her place. When Barbara arrived with Emma later that evening, Sarah pulled her mother-in-law aside. He said yes, she said simply. Barbara's eyes filled with tears. Oh, Sarah, that's wonderful. She glanced toward the living room, where Emma was showing her new model airplane to Mr. Whiskers, who remained typically unimpressed. Is he right for her, do you think? In your heart? Sarah followed her gaze, watching her daughter's animated gestures. Yes, she said with quiet certainty. He's right for her. Different from what we might have imagined. But right. Barbara nodded, accepting Sarah's judgment. Then I'll support this in every way I can, for both their sakes. The small gathering Deacon had proposed turned out to be a carefully orchestrated introduction. On Saturday afternoon, 4 motorcycles pulled up in front of Sarah's house, their engines a muted rumble rather than the roaring thunder Sarah had expected. Deacon arrived first, helping Sarah set up a simple refreshment table in the backyard, while Emma bounced around in excitement at the prospect of meeting real motorcycle riders. I've just asked a few of my closest brothers, Deacon explained as they arranged chairs. People Emma would see regularly. Mike Bear Johnson, he's our club president. Former Force Recon Marine, now runs a youth center downtown. Ray and Maria Sanchez. Ray was our unit's medic, now he's an ER nurse. Maria teaches second grade, actually, and Doc Williams, retired army surgeon, served 3 tours in Afghanistan. They're good people, Sarah, the kind who show up when it matters. Sarah nodded, touched by his careful consideration. He wasn't just introducing random friends. He was presenting the support system that would help him raise Emma, people chosen specifically for their character and the roles they might play in a young girl's life. The sound of motorcycles approaching drew Emma to the front yard, where she watched wide-eyed as 4 bikes pulled to the curb. Deacon went to meet them, speaking briefly before leading the group around the side of the house to the backyard. Sarah watched as Emma's expression shifted from excited to slightly overwhelmed at the sight of the newcomers. Bear Johnson was first, his nickname immediately obvious. Standing well over 6 feet tall with shoulders like a linebacker, his massive frame was softened only slightly by a neatly trimmed salt-and-pepper beard and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. Behind him came Ray and Maria Sanchez, a couple in their 40s with matching leather vests. Ray was lean and wiry with intense dark eyes that scanned the area automatically, as if checking for threats. Maria, petite and pretty with her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, carried a gift bag. Last came Doc Williams, an African-American man in his 60s with silver-rimmed glasses and a dignified bearing that suggested his military rank had been significant. "Ms. Mitchell," Bear said, stepping forward and extending a massive hand. "Thank you for having us. Deacon's told us a lot about you and Emma." Sarah shook his hand, struck by the gentleness of his grip despite his size. "Please, call me Sarah, and thank you all for coming." Emma had retreated to stand partially behind Sarah, suddenly shy in the presence of these imposing strangers. Maria Sanchez noticed immediately and crouched down to Emma's level. "Hi there," she said warmly. "You must be Emma. I'm Maria. I brought something for you." She held out the gift bag. "Deacon mentioned you like to build models, and my students love these books. I thought you might too." Curiosity overcoming shyness, Emma accepted the bag and peered inside. Her face lit up as she pulled out several books, a children's encyclopedia of aircraft, an illustrated guide to simple engineering projects, and a beautifully illustrated story about a girl who builds her own go-kart. "Thank you," Emma said, her voice still quiet, but her eyes now alight with interest. "Maria teaches second grade," Sarah explained, "just like you'll be in next year." "Do you like school, Emma?" Maria asked. Emma nodded. "I like science the best. And art." "Those are my favorites too," Maria confided. "Maybe sometime you could visit my classroom. I have a really cool science corner with a microscope and everything." The introductions went better than Sarah could have hoped. Bear Johnson, despite his intimidating nickname and massive frame, displayed a gentle demeanor that immediately put Emma at ease, showing her magic tricks and telling jokes that had her giggling uncontrollably. Maria Sanchez connected with Emma over their shared love of books, promising to bring her collection of Roald Dahl novels on her next visit. Ray and Doc shared humorous stories about Deacon's military days, carefully edited for young ears, painting a picture of a man who could always be counted on, who never left anyone behind. "Did you know," Doc told Emma as they sat together on the patio steps, "that Deacon once carried a fellow Marine for 3 miles through rough terrain when the man was injured? Wouldn't leave him behind even though it was dangerous." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" Doc confirmed. "That's the kind of man he is. Loyal, trustworthy." Sarah caught Deacon's eye across the yard, noting his slight embarrassment at being discussed this way, but she also saw his understanding of what his friends were doing, helping Emma see the character of the man who would be her guardian. Watching them interact with her daughter, Sarah felt the rightness of her decision settle deeper. These people would be Emma's extended family, different from what she might have envisioned for her child, but solid, genuine, and clearly committed to supporting Deacon in his promise to raise Emma. As the afternoon progressed, Sarah found herself sitting slightly apart, conserving her waning energy, while observing the scene before her. Deacon noticed her fatigue and quietly brought her a glass of water and her medication. "They're wonderful," Sarah told him softly. "Thank you for introducing us." Deacon's gaze followed Emma as she sat perched on Bear's massive knee, examining the tattoos on his forearm while he patiently explained each one. "They're my family," he said simply. "They'll be Emma's too." Later, after the guests had departed and Emma was helping Barbara with the dishes, Bear Johnson returned alone. The big man approached Sarah where she rested on the porch swing, his expression serious. "Miss Mitchell," he began, his deep voice pitched low. I want you to know something. When Deacon told us what he was taking on, there wasn't a second of hesitation from any of us. Your daughter won't just have Deacon, she'll have all of us. Every member of the Iron Veterans stands ready to help raise that little girl. Sarah blinked back tears. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Bear, please. He sat beside her, the swing creaking under his weight. There's something else. The club's taken a vote. We've established a fund for Emma. College, extracurriculars, whatever she needs that isn't covered by what you've set up. Every member contributes monthly. Sarah stared at him, stunned. But you don't even know us. Why would you do that? Bear's weathered face softened. Because that's what brothers do for each other. And because that little girl in there deserves every chance at a good life. He hesitated, then added, We've all seen too much loss. Too many kids who fall through the cracks. Not this time. Not Emma. Sarah couldn't speak, overwhelmed by this unexpected generosity. Bear seemed to understand, patting her hand gently before rising. Just wanted you to know. You can rest easy on that score. As he turned to leave, Sarah found her voice. Mr. Johnson, Bear, there's something I need to ask you. He paused, looking back. Anything. When I'm gone, will you make sure Deacon doesn't try to do this all alone? He strikes me as the type who might not ask for help, even when he needs it. Bear's expression grew solemn. You've got his number, that's for sure. Don't worry, we won't let him isolate, that's a promise. After he left, Sarah sat on the porch swing watching the sun set, a profound sense of peace settling over her. She had found not just one guardian for Emma, but an entire community, different from what she might have imagined, but perhaps exactly what her daughter would need. The weeks that followed established a new rhythm in the Mitchell household. Deacon became a regular presence, coming by after work several times a week to spend time with Emma, building models, teaching her simple motorcycle maintenance on his bike, helping with homework. Sarah observed their growing bond with a mixture of gratitude and bittersweet acceptance. This was what she had hoped for, what Emma needed, a gradual transition rather than a sudden upheaval after Sarah's death. Other members of the Iron Veterans began making appearances as well. Maria Sanchez took Emma for ice cream and bookstore visits. Bear coached her soccer team's Saturday practices. Doc Williams, discovering Emma's interest in science, brought over simple experiment kits that transformed the kitchen into a temporary laboratory. One evening after Emma had gone to bed, Deacon lingered at the kitchen table reviewing some paperwork Barbara had given him about Emma's school. Sarah, more tired than usual after a difficult day of pain, sat across from him nursing a cup of tea. I should let you rest, Deacon said, noticing her fatigue. No, please, stay a bit. Sarah hesitated, then asked the question that had been on her mind. Are you having second thoughts about taking Emma? Deacon looked up, surprised. No, not at all. Why do you ask? Sometimes you seem, I don't know, worried, I guess. Like you're carrying a heavy weight. Deacon was silent for a moment, considering his response. Not second thoughts, just awareness of the responsibility. I want to get this right, for Emma's sake, and for yours. What worries you most? Sarah asked gently. He met her gaze directly. That I won't know how to help her through her grief, that I'll say the wrong things or not say the right ones, that I'll somehow diminish her memories of you and her father. Sarah was touched by his honesty. You know what I think? I think the fact that you're worried about those things means you'll be careful with them. You'll be thoughtful about how you handle her grief and her memories. Deacon nodded, but the concern remained in his eyes. Catherine and I never had children. I don't have any experience with this. No one does, really, Sarah said. Every child is different. Every situation is unique. Even parents who've raised children from birth are constantly figuring it out as they go along. She smiled gently. The secret is that none of us know what we're doing. We just do our best and hope it's enough. A ghost of a smile touched Deacon's lips. That's not exactly reassuring. Wasn't meant to be, Sarah replied. Just honest. But I'll tell you something else, honestly. I've watched you with Emma these past weeks. You have good instincts with her. You're patient. You listen. Really listen when she talks. You take her seriously. That's more important than experience. Deacon seemed to absorb her words, his expression easing slightly. Thank you for saying that. Through it all, Sarah's condition deteriorated. The pain grew more persistent, her energy more fleeting. Barbara moved in permanently to help with Emma's daily care while Sarah conserved her strength for precious moments with her daughter. The time had come for the conversation she had been dreading. On a Sunday morning in late May, with sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows, Sarah patted the space beside her on the bed. "Come sit with me, sweetheart. We need to talk about something important." Emma climbed up, immediately snuggling against her mother's side. At 7, she was perceptive beyond her years, already sensing that something was deeply wrong. "Is it about your sickness, Mum?" Sarah nodded, stroking Emma's hair. "Yes, baby, it is." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You know how the doctors have been giving me medicine to try to make me better?" Emma nodded solemnly. "Well, the medicine isn't working the way we hoped. The doctors have tried everything they can, but sometimes—" Sarah's voice caught, but she forced herself to continue. "Sometimes even doctors can't fix everything." Emma's small body stiffened against hers. "Are you going to die like Daddy did?" The direct question, spoken in Emma's clear child's voice, broke something open in Sarah's chest. "Yes, sweetheart. Not right away, but yes. The sickness is too strong, and eventually my body won't be able to keep fighting it." Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, in a small voice, "Who's going to take care of me? Will I live with Grandma? Grandma loves you very much, but she's getting older, and it's hard for her to keep up with an energetic girl like you." Sarah hesitated, then pressed on. "Remember Mr. Callahan? Deacon?" Emma nodded. "He's teaching me about motorcycles and airplanes." "Yes, he is. He's a very good, kind man, and he's agreed to take care of you and raise you when I can't be here anymore." Emma pulled back slightly, looking up at Sarah with confused eyes. "I would live with Mr. Callahan at his house?" "No, sweetheart. He would live here, in our house. This would still be your home. All your things would stay right where they are, and Grandma would still see you all the time, and you'd keep going to the same school with all your friends." Emma's brow furrowed as she worked through this information. "But he's not my daddy, or my uncle or anything." "No, he's not related to us. But sometimes, Emma, family isn't just about who you're born to. Sometimes it's about people who choose to love you and take care of you." Sarah stroked her daughter's cheek. "Deacon has chosen to be your guardian, to make sure you grow up safe and loved. And he won't be alone. Remember Mr. Bear and Miss Maria and the others? They'll all be there for you, too." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. "But I want you, Mum. I don't want you to go away like Daddy did." Sarah gathered her daughter close, her own tears falling freely now. "I know, baby. I don't want to leave you either. It's the hardest thing in the world. If I could stay with you forever, I would." She rocked Emma gently as the little girl cried. "But even when I'm not here physically, I'll always be with you, in your heart, in your memories, and I'll be watching over you just like Daddy does." They sat together, holding each other for a long time. When Emma's tears finally subsided, she asked in a small hiccuping voice, "Is that why Mr. Callahan has been coming over so much? Because he's going to be my guardian?" "Yes, sweetheart. I wanted you two to get to know each other while I'm still here, so it wouldn't feel so strange later." Sarah smoothed Emma's tangled hair. "What do you think about that? About Deacon being your guardian?" Emma considered the question with the seriousness only children can bring to important matters. "He's nice. He doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby, and he knows lots of cool stuff." She paused, then added, "But he's kind of quiet, and he doesn't know how to braid hair like you do." Despite everything, Sarah laughed. "No, I don't suppose he does, but maybe Grandma can teach him. Or Ms. Maria." She kissed the top of Emma's head. "The important thing is that he cares about you. He wants to make sure you're safe and happy. Will I still be able to talk about you and Daddy? Will he mind?" "Oh, Emma, of course you can talk about us. In fact, it's very important that you do. Deacon wants to know all about us, about our family. He wants to help you remember." Emma nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. Then she asked the question that revealed how deeply she understood what was happening. "How long until you go to heaven with Daddy?" Sarah's heart contracted painfully. How to answer this? How to prepare a 7-year-old for the approaching loss without overwhelming her with dread? "I don't know exactly," she said finally. "Maybe a few months. I'll get more tired and I'll need more medicine to help with the pain. There might be times when I need to rest a lot. But I promise you, Emma, I'm going to spend as much time with you as I possibly can. We'll make lots of memories together." That evening, after Emma was asleep, Sarah called Deacon. "I told her today," she said when he answered, "about my prognosis, about you becoming her guardian." A pause, then, "How did she take it?" "As well as could be expected. She's sad, confused, but she likes you." Sarah's voice broke slightly. She wanted to know if she could still talk about Michael and me after I'm gone. Of course she can, Deacon said, his voice gentle but firm. I would never try to replace you or her father. My job is to help her remember, not make her forget. The sincerity in his words loosened something in Sarah's chest. Thank you, she whispered. Can you come over tomorrow after she gets home from school? I think it would be good for her to see you, to ask any questions she might have. I'll be there, he promised. True to his word, Deacon arrived the next afternoon just as Emma's school bus pulled up. Sarah watched from the porch as her daughter spotted him waiting, and after a moment's hesitation, ran to him. Deacon crouched down to her level, his expression serious as Emma spoke to him, her small hands gesturing emphatically. Whatever she was saying, Deacon listened intently, nodding occasionally. When she finished, he said something that made Emma's posture relax, and then, to Sarah's surprise, the little girl threw her arms around his neck in a quick hug. As they walked up to the house together, Sarah caught fragments of their conversation. "And you promise I can keep Mr. Snuggles on my bed?" Emma was asking. "Your room stays exactly how you want it," Deacon assured her. "Mr. Snuggles included." Emma nodded, satisfied, then spotted Sarah. "Mom, Mr. Callahan says I can still have pancakes for breakfast on Saturdays, and he's going to learn how to make them with chocolate chips just like you do." Sarah smiled, meeting Deacon's gaze over Emma's head. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." She saw gratitude in his eyes, understanding that Emma's acceptance of him was a precious gift. That night, reviewing the day's events, Sarah realized something remarkable had happened. In telling Emma the truth, in bringing Deacon more fully into their lives, a weight had lifted. The future was still heartbreaking. She would still leave her daughter too soon, still miss seeing Emma grow up. But there was comfort in knowing Emma wouldn't face that future alone or unprepared. The following weeks brought decline, rapid, unmistakable. The cancer spread to Sarah's bones, bringing pain that even the strongest medications could only dull. Some days were better than others. On good days, she sat in the living room or on the porch, participating in family life as best she could. On bad days, she remained in bed, drifting in and out of consciousness while Barbara and Deacon managed the household. Emma adapted to the new reality with the resilience of childhood, but also with moments of anger and confusion. One day, returning from school, she refused to enter Sarah's bedroom for their usual afternoon visit, storming off to her own room instead. Barbara was distraught, but Deacon intervened. "Let me talk to her," he said quietly. He knocked on Emma's door, waiting for her muffled, "Go away," before speaking. "Emma, it's Deacon. May I come in?" Silence, then a grudging, "Okay." Emma was sitting on her bed, arms wrapped around her knees, face tear-stained but defiant. Deacon sat on the floor across from her, respecting her space. "Rough day?" he asked simply. Emma shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "Want to talk about it?" "No." A pause, then, "Maybe." Deacon waited patiently, giving her time. "Jason Miller said his grandpa had cancer too, and he got all skinny, and then he died," Emma finally burst out. "He said Mom's going to look like a skeleton soon." "He said it's gross." Anger flashed in Deacon's eyes, quickly controlled. "Jason Miller doesn't know what he's talking about," he said evenly, "and that was a very unkind thing for him to say." "But is it true?" Emma demanded. "Is Mom going to look like that?" Deacon considered his response carefully. "Your mom's body is changing because of the cancer and the medicine. That's true. She is getting thinner, but she's still your mom, no matter what she looks like on the outside." Emma's lower lip trembled. "I don't want to see her looking scary." "I understand that," Deacon said gently. "It can be hard to see someone you love change. But you know what? I bet your mom is worried about the same thing. I bet she's worried about looking different and maybe scaring you." Emma looked up, surprised. "Really? Really? And I think she'd be very sad to think you were afraid to visit her. But it's okay to have those feelings, Emma. It's okay to be scared or upset or angry about what's happening." Emma's shoulders slumped. "I yelled at Grandma. I said I hated everybody." "We all say things we don't mean when we're upset," Deacon assured her. "Grandma understands that, and so does your mom. Do you think Mom's mad at me for not visiting her today?" "Not at all. I think she just misses you." Deacon hesitated, then added, "You know, when I was in the Marines, I learned something important about being brave. It doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing something even though you're scared." Emma considered this. "So I can be brave and still be scared to see Mom?" "Exactly. That's the bravest kind of brave there is." Emma slid off her bed, straightening her shoulders. I think I want to see Mom now. I think that's a good idea, Deacon said, rising to his feet. And Emma, anytime you're feeling upset or confused about all this, you can talk to me. That's what I'm here for. When they entered Sarah's room a few minutes later, Sarah was dozing, her face gaunt and pale against the pillows. Emma hesitated in the doorway, but Deacon's gentle hand on her shoulder steadied her. She approached the bed quietly, climbing up to sit beside her mother. Sarah's eyes fluttered open, a smile lighting her tired face. "There's my girl," she murmured. "I'm sorry I didn't come see you earlier, Mom," Emma said, her voice small. "It's okay, sweetheart. I understand." Sarah's gaze met Deacon's over Emma's head, a silent thank you in her eyes. Deacon nodded once, then quietly withdrew, leaving mother and daughter to their precious time together. In the hallway, he found Barbara waiting anxiously. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Emma was so upset earlier. "It's okay now," Deacon assured her. "A boy at school said some upsetting things about cancer. She was scared about how Sarah might look as she gets sicker." Barbara's face clouded. "That poor child. As if this weren't hard enough already." "She's handling it," Deacon said. "She's stronger than she knows." As June turned to July, Sarah's condition worsened dramatically. Hospice care began, with nurses visiting daily to manage her pain and other symptoms. Emma spent hours at her mother's bedside reading to her, showing her drawings, sometimes just holding her hand while Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness. Deacon's presence became even more consistent. He rearranged his work schedule to be at the house every day, learning the practical aspects of Emma's care, her school schedule, her medication for seasonal allergies, the names of her friends and their parents. He sat with Sarah during Emma's school hours, sometimes in silence, sometimes listening as Sarah shared memories of Emma as a baby, of her life with Michael, of hopes and dreams for Emma's future that she wouldn't live to see. One afternoon, as Sarah struggled through a particularly difficult bout of pain, she clutched Deacon's hand. "Promise me," she gasped, "promise me you won't let her forget us." "I promise," Deacon said firmly. "We'll talk about you and Michael. We'll celebrate your birthdays. We'll look at photos and videos. She'll know where she came from, Sarah. She'll know how much you both loved her." Sarah's grip on his hand tightened. "And promise you'll let her be a child, that you won't let my dying overshadow her whole life." "I promise that too," Deacon said. "She'll laugh again, Sarah. She'll play and have friends and do normal kid things. I'll make sure of it." Sarah nodded, her eyes closing as the pain medication finally took effect. "I believe you," she whispered. One evening, as Deacon was preparing to leave for the night, Emma followed him to the door. "Deacon," she said, the first time she had used his first name without the Mr. prefix. "Mom isn't going to get better, is she?" Deacon crouched down to her level. "No, Emma, she isn't. The doctors have tried everything they can." Emma nodded, her face solemn. "Grandma says Mom might go to heaven soon." "That's right. Your mom is very sick now." Emma looked at him searchingly. "Will you still want to be my guardian even if I get really sad and sometimes mad about it?" Deacon felt his heart squeeze painfully in his chest. "Yes, Emma. I will still want to be your guardian. No matter how sad or mad or confused you feel, those feelings are all okay and they don't change anything between us." Emma seemed to accept this, nodding again. "Okay." She hesitated, then added in a whisper, "I'm scared." Deacon opened his arms, and Emma stepped into them, allowing him to hold her for the first time. "I know," he said softly against her hair. "I'm scared too, but we're going to get through this together. You're not alone, Emma. You will never be alone." Over the next week, members of the Iron Veterans maintained a constant presence at the house. They brought food, ran errands, took Emma for brief outings to give her respite from the heavy atmosphere at home. Bear organized a rotation, so someone was always available to help Barbara with household tasks. Maria took charge of communicating with Emma's school, ensuring her teachers understood the situation and were prepared to support her when classes resumed in the fall. Through it all, Deacon remained steadfast. When Sarah could no longer communicate clearly due to the heavy pain medications, he sat with her anyway, sometimes reading aloud from her favorite books, sometimes just holding her hand. "When Emma wouldn't meet with me at all today, what did I do wrong?" she asked him. Sarah squeezed his hand weakly. "It's not you, it's the situation. She's protecting herself the only way she knows how." Her voice was barely above a whisper now, each word an effort. "Give her time, be patient, just keep showing up." Deacon nodded, his expression resolute. "I'm not going anywhere, no matter how long it takes." Sarah believed him. It was the foundation of everything. This certainty that Deacon Callahan was a man who kept his promises no matter how difficult. The end came on a quiet Tuesday morning in late July. Sarah slipped away peacefully, Barbara holding one hand, Deacon the other. Emma, exhausted from keeping vigil through the night, had finally fallen asleep in a chair beside the bed. When she woke to find her mother gone, her small face crumpled in grief, even as Deacon gathered her into his arms, whispering that he was here, that he would always be here. The funeral was small but well attended. Teachers from Emma's school, neighbors, members of the Iron Veterans in their formal leather vests. Emma stood between Deacon and Barbara at the graveside, her face solemn beyond her years, as she placed a single rose on her mother's casket. "Goodbye, Mommy," she whispered, her voice steady though tears streamed down her face. "Say hi to Daddy for me." Deacon felt his throat constrict at her words, at the courage of this small girl facing a loss no child should have to endure. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, and Emma leaned against him, accepting his support as they turned away from the grave. The days that followed were difficult. Emma alternated between clinging to Deacon and pushing him away, testing whether his promise to stay was real. Grief manifested in outbursts, in nightmares that brought her screaming to consciousness, in periods of silence where she refused to speak at all. Through it all, Deacon remained steady. When Emma raged, he provided boundaries without punishment. When she withdrew, he simply sat nearby, offering quiet companionship until she was ready to engage again. When she woke, terrified in the night, he was there with gentle reassurance, a glass of water, a nightlight. Barbara visited daily, providing continuity and sharing stories of both Sarah and Michael. The Iron Veterans maintained a constant presence. Bear bringing pizza for movie nights, Maria taking Emma shopping for school clothes, Doc helping with science projects. Their collective presence reinforced what Sarah had told Emma. Family could be chosen, could extend beyond blood ties. 1 month after the funeral, Deacon sat at the kitchen table, reviewing bills and insurance paperwork. The financial arrangements Sarah had made were meticulous, ensuring Emma's immediate needs were covered, but there were unexpected expenses. Therapy sessions not fully covered by insurance, a special camp for grieving children that the counselor had recommended. As he calculated figures, a knock came at the front door. Opening it, he found what appeared to be the entire Iron Veterans Motorcycle Club, nearly 50 riders standing in the yard, led by Bear. "What's going on?" Deacon asked, stepping onto the porch. Emma was at Barbara's for the afternoon, the house unusually quiet without her. Bear stepped forward, holding a large envelope. "Club business," he said formally, then broke into a grin. "The good kind. We heard about the grief camp the counselor recommended for Emma, and the therapy costs, and well, a few other things." He handed Deacon the envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $25,000. "What the hell, Bear?" Deacon stared at the check, then at his friend. "Where did this come from?" "From us," Bear said simply, gesturing to the assembled riders. "Every member contributed. Some local businesses too. Once word got out about what you're doing for Emma." Deacon shook his head, overwhelmed. "I can't accept this, it's too much." "It's not for you," Ray Sanchez spoke up from beside Bear. "It's for Emma, for whatever she needs. Therapy, special programs, college fund, whatever. You're just the custodian." "And there's more," Maria added, stepping forward with another smaller envelope. "We've set up a rotation, meals delivered 3 times a week, rides to and from school and activities when you're working, weekend outings to give you both a break. It's all organized, all you have to do is say yes." Deacon looked at the faces of his brothers and sisters, people he'd served with, ridden with, trusted with his life. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll let your family help you raise that little girl," Bear replied, "just like you promised Sarah." That evening, when Emma returned from her grandmother's, Deacon sat her down in the living room. "I have something to show you," he said, leading her to the window. Outside, lining the street in front of the house, were dozens of motorcycles. Their owners stood on the lawn, waiting. Emma's eyes widened. "What are they doing here?" "They're here for you," Deacon explained gently. "They want you to know that you have a big family now, people who care about you, people who want to help." Emma studied the gathering for a long moment, then looked up at Deacon. "Like Mom said, family isn't just who you're born to." "Exactly like that," Deacon agreed, his throat tight with emotion. Emma slipped her small hand into his. "Can we go say hello to our family?" Together they stepped out onto the porch to meet the community. that had rallied around them. A brotherhood of bikers who had become the village that would help raise one little girl, honoring a promise made to a dying mother who had the courage to ask for help. 6 months later, Emma stood on the stage at her school talent show, explaining the model airplane she had built, a perfect replica of a World War II Spitfire, meticulously assembled and painted. In the audience, Deacon sat in the front row, flanked by Barbara and Bear, pride evident on his weathered face. Behind them, filling nearly 2 rows, were members of the Iron Veterans, some still in their work clothes, having rushed from jobs to be present for this moment. As Emma concluded her presentation to enthusiastic applause, she looked directly at the assembled group and smiled, a full, genuine smile that reached her eyes for the first time since Sarah's death. It wasn't the end of grief, not by far, but it was a moment of joy breaking through the sorrow, a glimpse of the resilient spirit Sarah had nurtured in her daughter. Later, as they walked to the parking lot where Deacon's motorcycle waited alongside Barbara's sedan, Emma said suddenly, "Mom would be happy, wouldn't she, about all of us?" Deacon rested a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Yes, Emma, I believe she would. I still miss her every day," Emma confessed, her voice small. "I know. And that's okay. We'll always miss her, but we can be happy too sometimes. Both things can be true at once." Emma nodded, considering this. Then, with the wisdom children sometimes possess, she said, "I think Mom knew what she was doing when she picked you." Deacon's heart squeezed painfully in his chest. "I think she knew exactly what she was doing," he agreed softly. "Your mom was a very smart lady." As they drove home, Emma secure in the sidecar Deacon had added to his motorcycle specifically for her, he thought about the remarkable journey that had brought them here, one mother's desperate act of faith, one man's promise, and a community that had risen to support them both. It wasn't perfect. There were still difficult days ahead, but they were facing them together, building a new kind of family from the legacy Sarah had left behind. In the months and years to come, Emma would grow and change, her grief evolving but never vanishing completely. She would excel at school, develop a passion for engineering inspired by those early model building sessions, eventually earn a scholarship to college. Through it all, Deacon would remain her steady presence, keeping his promise to the woman who had trusted him with her most precious gift. And the Iron Veterans would continue their self-appointed mission, creating a safety net of support that extended far beyond financial assistance. They would cheer at Emma's graduations, teach her to ride her own motorcycle when she turned 16, much to Deacon's mixed pride and terror, and stand as family at significant moments throughout her life, all because one desperate mother had found the courage to ask for help, and one man had found the courage to say yes. If you were moved by this story of unexpected family and community support, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell. Your support helps us share more stories of hope and compassion with the world. Remember, sometimes our greatest strengths are revealed in our most vulnerable moments, and family can be found in the most unexpected places.